Yes, guys, welcome back to the channel. This is your latest Arsenal news and transfer news right with me, Kosh. We're going to be diving into the latest around Arsenal. Now, Arsenal looking to sign about 4 players, but this is going to depend on the injury status of a couple of players. So, Jurrien, Tomiyasu, Partey, and Fabio Vieira. These are the 4 players Arsenal are looking at, and this will determine whether Arsenal sign around 4 or 5 players in January, like Mikel Arteta is actually asking for, or we actually wait for their return. Now, a couple of our injuries will be coming back in January. A couple of our injured players will be returning in January. So, we're going to be diving into some of the injured players and whether they will be back in time before we sign another player, right? So Mikel wants a defender, he wants a midfielder, he wants a striker as well, and a winger. But is it necessary for us to go huge in January for about 4-5 players? Let me know in the comment box below how many players do you think Arsenal need this coming January. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Let's dive into it. Now, Mikel Arteta wants to sign 4 players in order to help him in his title, quest this campaign. And I think I've talked about this before on the podcast. If you've actually watched that video, I think Arsenal really need a lot of reinforcements. You look at the points gap, Arsenal at 40, Liverpool at 39, Aston Villa at 39. Mind you, Liverpool will play today and Arsenal will play on Thursday. So by the time we record a video on Thursday, by the time we play West Ham, Arsenal could be second or even third if Aston Villa actually beat Manchester United. However, this is my logic. If we are going to go for and buy 4-5 players in January, we need to look at the number of players we have, because there is also that point of game time. Players are actually asking for game time, and some players are actually not happy at the club because they don't think they're playing as much as they are. So in terms of a defender, that depends on 2 things: Jurrien Timber's recovery and Tomiyasu's recovery process as well. So with Jurrien Timber, we have seen the pictures, we have seen the reels, we have seen the short videos, we've seen an insight of the recovery process and the rehabilitation process of Jurrien Timber. It is highly unlikely that Jurrien Timber is fully fit and is playing again in January. Now, of course, Mikel Arteta did come out and talk about him, and he said, listen, he's actually doing very well. At this stage where he is right now, he is absolutely flying. His recovery process is flying. His rehabilitation process is flying as well. He's actually doing very well. But I do not think Jurrien Timber flying, crawling or walking, he's actually going to get himself back in the squad in January, unless if we want to risk another injury, unless if we want to risk another disaster and calamity. We don't want that, do we actually? So with Jurrien Timber, I think he's closer to coming back. I think it's ever getting closer, and I've always reported that Timber, for me, as compared to what we thought, coming back in August, coming back in October, he's actually done well. He's done really, really well. So when do we expect Jurrien Timber? When do we expect him to be on the pitch? I'm going to say earliest FC Porto second leg, and that's going to be March, around 12th or 13th. Right, so that is when earliest I expect him to be in the side. Between January and FC Porto's second leg, at the Emirates, Arsenal will have played, a total of about 6 Premier League games and above, and that is very crucial. We'll have played the FA Cup. We will have played the first leg of the Champions League as well. So I think Jurrien Timber's recovery and Jurrien Timber's process does not stop us from buying a defender. And I really agree with Mikel here. If you're going to wait for Jurrien Timber, you might as well just go and sign a good player or sign another defender, one that you can actually move on in the summer. It could be on loan. It could be it doesn't really matter in my case. It doesn't really matter as long as Arsenal can go and get this deal done, just to make sure that Timber has enough cover, and that will also allow us to give him enough time to rest. However, there is a twist to this one, and that twist is Takehiro Tomiyasu. I think with Takehiro Tomiyasu, I'm going to say this. The picture you see on your screen right now, Takeo Tomiyasu is one of the key players that have enabled Arsenal to be on top of the Premier League by now. His performances recently before picking up that injury have been massively impressive. And I think there was a question as to whether Ben White is better than Tomiyasu at right back. My answer has always been never, and it will always be never. I think Tomiyasu is a much better player at right back. I think he's a much more complete defender as compared to Ben White and Alexander Zinchenko. Even if I combine them, I would still take Tomiyasu. So Tomiyasu is possibly returning early January. We expect him to be available for the game that we will take on Liverpool in the EFL Cup. That is not EFL, but the FA Cup. I don't know why anyone would give us Liverpool in the first game of the FA Cup. Like, that is such a harsh draw. But we expect Tomiyasu to be back by that time. I think with Tomiyasu and the transfer window, the question is, can Tomiyasu keep fit? Can you trust that Tomiyasu will be fit for the rest of the campaign, like Gabriel Magalhaes, like Martin Odegaard? I don't think so. So there is a crisis at defense. There is a crisis in defense for Arsenal, and we will need to go and get a defender. Now, disappointing or not disappointing for this case, I do not have a name that Arsenal are looking at centre back. I don't have a name that Arsenal are looking at for a defender. But what I can say and what I can confirm is that we are looking for a player who is actually who has the ability to play in all four positions. So look at Tomiyasu. He can actually cover for William Saliba. And that is why he's such a crucial, important player for this rebuild process. He's one of the players that have the ability to occupy different positions and perform at a high level and high quality level. So I think with Tomiyasu, you need a player who can actually give you what he gives you. And I don't think there's so many, and I still don't think there's so many that you can get in January, right? I could think about Dan Burn. This is crazy, but I could think about Dan Burn at Newcastle. If Newcastle could sell, if they would be willing to sell, Dan Burn is a player I would definitely think about to actually bring it. But of course, so Timber and Tomiyasu's returns, for me, do not guarantee Arsenal, any assurances. We should go and sign a defender. I think Mikel Arteta is absolutely bang on and spot on in that regard. Now, Arsenal looking for a midfielder as well. And the midfield situation is one where we have a lot of names. And according to David Onstein, there is strong interest in Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad in January. And Arsenal would love to bring him in come January 2024. The question is, Real Sociedad are already in the round of 16 in the Champions League. Would they dare? Would they absolutely even think about daring selling their best player in best midfielder, probably not the best player. I think Takufeza Kubo could be their best best player, but at the moment Martin Zubimendi could be the best midfielder right now. So will they be thinking about selling Zubimendi in January? I highly doubt that. Of course, we are also hearing rumors about Douglas Luiz and Arsenal interested. We are hearing rumors about Amadou Onana. All that will be covered extensively on this channel if you hit the subscribe button. So with the midfield, I don't even think it's about injury. So let's talk about Fabio Vieira for a moment. Fabio Vieira will be returning late January after he was actually operated in his groin, okay? So he's coming back late January. And with Fabio, the way I look at him and the way I look at things, Fabio Vieira could actually return to full training at the end of January, and he might actually make his first appearance in March for Arsenal. So I think Fabio Vieira is not an option. He's not a reliable option at the moment to back up Kai Havertz and give us that kind of something different. I liked Liverpool and the way Jurgen Klopp approached that game. Now, he started with Curtis Shaw, Wataru Endo, and Dominic Szoboszlai. And you look at the second half and you look at the switches he made, Ryan Gravenberch coming on, Harvey Elliott coming on. That is a different midfield because Ryan Gravenberch is attack-minded, like really attack-minded, and so is Harvey Elliott. And that meant that you had Dominic Szoboszlai kind of, holding holding their midfield, right? So I still think, in my opinion, Fabio Vieira, coming back or not, Arsenal should sign a midfielder. With Thomas Partey, there is January and there is AFCON. I'm sorry, I don't think Thomas Partey is going to be relied on as much as he was last campaign or the campaigns before that. Partey knows this. Mikel Arteta knows this. The relevance of Thomas Partey in this Arsenal squad is diminishing. And I know many people have said, Kosi, you're really disrespectful about Partey. You're really disrespectful about, the way you talk about Thomas Partey and all that. But I think it's the truth. I think there is a diminishing curve in in trajectory when it comes to Partey's relevance to this Arsenal side. Check in. Who has been our best player this year so far? Declan Rice. Who is the most important player for Arsenal right now? Declan Rice. Who is the most clutch player for Arsenal right now? Declan Rice. Who has won more points for Arsenal this season in very difficult grounds? Declan Rice. Brentford, ball off the line. Man United, a winner. Luton Town, a winner, and then he actually blocks Liverpool, in a 4v1 attack. So, is that Thomas Partey? No, that is a Thomas Partey replacement plus upgrade. So I would say, for me, Declan Rice is got to be, is going to be more important than Thomas Partey, and therefore that means that Partey and Fabio Vieira returning, it makes no news. Arsenal still have to go and find a midfielder. Now, we are looking at very difficult names. Amadou Onana is not an option. If Everton want to stay up, it's not an option to sell him. Douglas Luiz, they're looking at the title. They're geared up. They're nicely looking at all these beautiful things, and they're saying, we cannot even sell. We cannot even think about selling, can we? I think a midfielder is a necessity. I think a midfielder is a must. If we are going to keep the trajectory going upwards, especially this campaign, then a midfielder is an absolute, is an absolute necessity. Okay, so a striker, with the striker situation, there are two questions. Is Edin Nketiah good enough to lead the Arsenal line in absence of Gabriel Jesus? No. Is Edin Nketiah going to provide you the number of goals, 10, 15, towards the end of the campaign, that that will actually allow us to overpower Man City's Haaland and Darwin Núñez and Cody Gakpo at Liverpool? I don't think so. So Arsenal need a striker, and I think Mikel Arteta has already made this clear that he would love to sign one if the funds and resources are actually available. I think this doesn't depend on injuries, but it also depends on the availability of Gabriel Jesus. We know he is injury prone. We know that Gabriel Jesus can pick up injuries that will, I would say, hurt the team, right, at unexpected times. So I'm going to say a striker is a necessity. A striker is a necessity as well. Now, wingers have been on Arsenal's radar for some time now. And I'm going to do a spoiler alert here. I think we will sign a winger in the summer. Well, that means that Arsenal are most likely not going to sign a winger. But I can see Arsenal sign a player who's got the ability to sit in as a number 9, but also has the love to actually move wide. But also, it means that if you signed a striker, it could force Gabriel Jesus into the wide areas. I think Martinelli has not lit up the scene this season. I think Saka is dull, and I think Leandro Trossard is like way off the game. Our wide players do not actually fill me with confidence. They don't. I'm not really sitting there and I'm like, we are playing Man City. They will feel the wrath of Martinelli. I'm not feeling that. I'm not getting the vibes of Saka will destroy Tsimikas, or Saka will destroy Nathan Ake or Josko Gvardiol. I'm not getting those vibes. I think we're scoring goals. But let's look at this board game. Let's look at this graphic again. Arsenal have a positive 20 goal difference. Manchester City have a 20 goal difference, and Liverpool have a 21. But when you look at that, graphic, it doesn't actually tell the story, right? That graphic is like that because Arsenal have actually conceded less goals than we were conceding last campaign, but we are not scoring massively, more goals. And I'm not saying that, Arsenal ought to be scoring huge number of goals and all that. What I'm saying is that if you're on top of the table, 18 games in, you should be able to score at least more goals. That's what I'm trying to say. So, and I think our wingers are partly to blame as to why we're not getting more goals, as to why the team is actually not performing at, at the levels that we were performing at. It could be also that teams have phoned up the way we play, and we need some kind of refreshment. One thing we saw with Leandro Trossard when he actually came in last season was that kind of refreshment kind of bait, right? He came in and teams were not really sure how to deal with him. It wasn't the same way they were dealing with Gabriel Martinelli, and it wasn't the same way they were dealing with Saka, right? Because he could tuck into this kind of midfield, and he could play at false nine at times, and then he could drift wide. And he gave us a lot of unpredictability, and he gave us a lot of different flavors to our play. I don't think those dimensions are actually still available. I think it's predictable. It's very, very predictable. So I would look at a winger as a necessity, but if we don't get one, I wouldn't really be mad, okay? So, listen, talk to me. Do you think all these positions need a new player in January? And do you think Tomiyasu, Timber, Partey, and Vieira coming back, that means that Arsenal have to sign less players come the January transfer window? Subscribe to this channel because this way you'll be getting the latest Arsenal news. And, of course, my personal opinions is my personal channel. Let's make it shine. I'll see you right in the next one.